Hello and welcome to another episode of Time About the Movies Flashback. We're flashing back to January 15th, 1988, and we are looking at the last four officially released movies of 1988 according to Box Office Mojo, which does not mean we have seen all the movies that 1988 gave us. I have a list here of movies that I'm going to be doing for the Leftovers episode, which will be for next week. But for now, though, these are the last four films that Box Office Mojo had on their list. We're going to take a look at all four of them right now. We're going to start off with the biggest new release of the weekend. John G. Avildsen, the Oscar-winning director of Rocky and the Karate Kid, brings us Molly Ringwald in the coming-of-age dramedy For Keeps.
Darcy Elliott never failed a test. Why should this one be any different?
I'm pregnant. Can you pass the test?
Why don't we just keep it?
Go on. You had a gerbil last year. You forgot to feed it. It died.
Now, for better or for worse, they're in it for keeps.
I was hoping you'd want to marry me.
Molly Ringwald.
I guess you got yourself a wife.
Randall Battencock. For Keeps, rated PG-13. Now playing at a theater near you.
Molly Ringwald and some guy that I have no idea who he is. I guess he was in School Ties and Higher Learning, but he supposedly was a thing if he's getting second billing behind Molly Ringwald. But this is For Keeps, and as you can tell from the trailer there, you have two high school seniors in love. Complications ensue when Darcy, played by Ringwald, becomes pregnant just before graduation and decides to keep her baby. And this was a film in particular that was notable for being Ringwald's final teen film, if you will, because she was in 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink. And this is one of the movies that kind of took her from the teen movies into her more mature performances she'd have, starting with later on in the year with the movie, what was that other movie she did? I think it was Fresh Horses, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Fresh Horses. I was right, Fresh Horses. But a film that probably has a really good story to tell, but it's released in January, and I think you could pretty much see what the problem is right from the get-go. It's a movie that the studio probably didn't believe in because it ended up becoming a movie that was really almost to the level of an after-school special, except with bigger names involved in the cast, and, you know, again, a lot of interesting ideas, an interesting story to tell about a high school couple that has to deal with the fact that the girl got pregnant and what happens now, but it really does pile on the cliches and just becomes more of a generic. This is like an after-school special you would have seen on ABC back in the day, because they were still doing those around that time. And got a good cast overall. Besides Ringwald, you got Kenneth Mars, Miriam Flynn, Conchita Ferrell, Pauly Shore has one of his first roles in this. Alex Trebek. This was actually one of his first movies that he was in playing himself. He had like a cameo in here, but. Yeah, other than that, though, for a director like John G. Avildsen, this was still when he was still a very reliable name in terms of films. I mean, you expect much better from the director of Rocky and the Karate Kid, but here, any director probably could have made this movie better, and even then, it needed a better script to work with. I mean, this is a film that's just really pretty lazy, really wastes a really good performance by Molly Ringwald. I think she does carry the load here and does show that she's got a lot of potential with the more mature performance that she would have later on down the road. But here, it's not enough to save the movie from anything being but mostly a forgettable January movie. Because it really is a forgettable January movie, pretty much. So speaking of forgettable January movies, here's Return of the Living Dead Part 2.
When there's no peace for the dead, there's no escape for the living.
Is it serious?
Is dead serious? Just when you thought it was safe to be dead. Return of the Living Dead, Part 2. Rated R. Starts Friday. Check newspapers for theaters and shows.
Yeah, that definitely does not look as fun as the first Return of the Living Dead was. I mean, that one had a great marketing campaign. You know, Percy Rodriguez telling you they're back from the dead and ready to party. I mean, we'll get to that one eventually when we get to 85, but that's a much better marketing campaign for that movie than it is here. Because it just looks like another generic zombie movie. And in this sequel, you have a group of kids discovering one of the drums containing a rotting corpse and releases the 2,4,5-trioxin gas into the air, causing the dead to once again rise from the grave and seek out brains. Because, of course, that's what zombies back then did. They looked for brains, and that's about it. And, like I said, it's not as fun as the original Return of the Living Dead, which I think is a very funny parody of a horror movie, of a zombie movie. But this it feels like they're trying way too hard to cash in on that success, which this film was a success. I mean, these movies were not did not cost a whole lot. It made back $9 million off of a $6.5 million budget, so it was easily going to make its money back easily. But I don't know. You just kind of expected it to be a little bit better with everything that the first movie had going for it. This one I feel like was just pushing its luck too much, and it's a largely forgettable movie in general. So yeah, not much more to say about that one. That's Return of the Living Dead Part 2. So let's go ahead and move on to actually most of these movies that we have this week are January disappointments. Case in point, Dan Aykroyd and Walter Matthau in The Couch Trip.
Dan Aykroyd. 4 days ago, he broke out from the nut house.
I don't want to escape with you. I hate you. I can accept that.
Now he's impersonating a rich psychiatrist in Beverly Hills.
Is there anything more expensive than First Class?
Dan Aykroyd and Walter Matthau. The Couch Trip.
I finally found a place I fit in as well as I do the nut house. Beverly Hills.
Rated R. Special sneak preview.
Speaking of directors who were still considered reliable names at the time, Michael Ritchie, who gave us The Bad News Bears and had just directed The Golden Child before this. You have Dan Aykroyd playing an escaped mental patient who replaces Charles Grodin on a radio show, saying that he's a psychiatrist, and his radio show becomes a hit and he becomes very popular. But then he meets the real doctor, and they meet at Congress in London, and chaos and hilarity ensues. You wouldn't know this because Charles Grodin is obviously nowhere in that trailer, neither is really Donna Dixon. The focus is mostly on Dan Aykroyd and Walter Matthau, and it just felt like one of those movies where Orion, I think, was trying to capture the same kind of lightning in a bottle that Trading Places was, or Ghostbusters, or films like that, but it really did feel like a movie that really did not have a good idea of what they were trying to do with it itself, what was the whole point of existing, and it wastes too many good, talented people in here. You know, like I said, Aykroyd, Matthau, Grodin, Donna Dixon, Mary Gross, Ari Gross, Victoria Jackson, Chevy Chase is in here for a little bit. Just a lot of good people involved in here. Just not a good story in general to really work with. And the jokes really aren't that funny in particular. It's a mostly forgettable film that has nothing really of value to it. And Walter Matthau was making some pretty bad movies around this point. I mean, his credibility had really gone downhill in the 1980s. We're going to get to several of his notable flops as the decade continues. But yeah, this was not a good movie in general. It's a really kind of a disappointing film. You kind of expected a lot more from it, honestly. But then again, it's a January movie. And speaking of bad January movies, let's wrap up with probably the biggest overall misfire of the whole weekend. Burt Reynolds and Liza Minnelli, the pairing we've been waiting to see our entire lives. Not really, in Rent-A-Cop.
Go.
It was the perfect bust.
Please.
Until it went bust.
Please.
It cost Tony Church his job.
Red's finished the part. Quiet a minute.
You gotta move on. Those guys are dead. You're alive.
Now,
That's not Santa. He's a fake.
he's got a new career.
Merry Christmas.
Just a bad idea from the get-go. I mean, you have Burt Reynolds playing a disgraced police officer who's now working as a security guard who falls in love with Liza Minnelli, who plays a prostitute. The trailers don't really give you an indication on if this is supposed to be a comedy or something more serious. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of comedy in that trailer, but it's sold as a thriller. It's literally described here on Wikipedia as a thriller comedy, and it really doesn't show in this movie, man. And these two made two really bad movies in 1988, Switching Channels and Arthur 2 on the Rocks. And this movie, maybe 10 years ago, that this could have been something pretty good, but not now. It felt like Burt Reynolds' career was kind of already on a downward spiral at this point, and Liza Minnelli, it's kind of in limbo in terms of her acting career in general at this point. I mean, but I don't know. It just didn't work for me. It wasn't very funny. The chemistry between the two didn't work that well. it felt like Burt Reynolds was getting way too old to do these type of movies anymore, and it just felt like he needed to move on and realize that he's much older than he was 5 years ago when he was still a reliable box office draw. But it just feels like a film that just had ideas for maybe possibly working in another time period, but not now, not when these two are at the age that they're at this point. But wasn't funny, wasn't clever, wasn't really anything of noteworthiness. So that's Rent-A-Cop for you. And so there you go. We pretty much covered every movie on Box Office Mojo's list for 1988 from the charts that I had on there. But there was a lot of notable movies that we did not get to cover. Ones that I know came out this year, and ones that I know are very notable. And we're going to talk about them on the next episode. So next week we'll talk about Daffy Duck's Quackbusters. That was one of the big ones that I did not think I thought was easily going to be on there, but nope. Kathy Ireland in the cult classic Alien from L.A., Palm Puppies and the Legend of Big Paw, which did go to the big screen. We got a lot of Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 movies. I think, let's see, 6 of them actually. Top Cat and the Beverly Hills Cats, The Good, the Bad, and the Huckleberry Hound, Rockin' with Judy Jetson, Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf, and Yogi and the Invasion of the Space Bears. But on top of that, no Killers of Clowns from Outer Space on Box Office Mojo's list, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about War Party with Kevin Dillon, one of his big movies from 1988. We also have, I believe, the last one here. This one obviously wasn't on Box Office Mojo's list because it was supposed to go to theaters, but sent it straight to video. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. So what do we got here? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 movies we'll look at for the 1988 leftovers, and we'll get to those all on next week's episode, and then that'll be the official season finale for Time About the Movies Flashback for 1988. But with that said, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the plays on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.